you say when you're talking. You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful, careful.
Welcome back, Trinidad and Tobago. Well, Calibra Solutions Limited is one of the Caribbean's leading information technology consultancies. They have partnered with the dark web intelligence company Searchlight Cyber to help organizations combat cybercrime emanating from the dark web. Well, to share with us more about this and to answer all your questions, we are joined this morning by Calibra CEO George Whyte. Well, of course, you're the managing director, Mr. Whyte.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity.
Good morning, Mr. Whyte, again, and thank you so much for joining us. So for our viewers who may not be too au courant with cybercrime and cyber attacks, can you just tell us what is a cyber attack?
A cyber attack is essentially an external party penetrating your network, your computer defenses, and with the intention of causing harm or disruption. It may be seen as something that potentially can affect your business from operating. So it's essentially a business continuity challenge.
So to counter cyber attacks, if I am correct, we implement information security.
That's correct. There are different tools and technologies and processes and policies that can be implemented to assist in reducing the risk of being compromised or attacked.
So quite recently in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm pretty sure you are up to date with the news here, but quite recently the judiciary was said to be in crisis after our Attorney General's office suffered a cyber attack. So aside from losing access to documents, to being able to access the network, as you mentioned, can records be tampered with, personal information leaked? What exactly happens during a cyber attack?
Your digital estate essentially is compromised, which means that your electronic records can be held to ransom in some cases. So the threat actors would request or demand a ransom to be paid before they release your data so that you can operate normally. So there are many different types of ways in which your normal operations can be disrupted, including losing access to the normal tools that you use to do business, whether you're a public sector or a private sector entity.
Do we find, or are there trends in those entities and companies that would be attacked or targeted?
Yes. One of the challenges that we have to face in the Caribbean is that the threat actors target the Caribbean because they're an assumption that we may not be investing in the tools and technologies compared to other areas in the world. So, you know, we're just as or even more susceptible than other areas. So we'll have compromises not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but other Caribbean countries. Costa Rica had a situation a few months ago where their entire government was compromised. People couldn't pay taxes and so on. So it's a serious risk that we all face.
Well, I was about to ask, you touched on it a bit, but is this just an act of mischief? Are these attackers or hackers, are they looking for something? What is their main motive?
Well, it varies. There are some hackers that are just looking for the challenge of getting into systems that were thought to be impregnable. But there's a major and increasing element where their motivation is greed. It's really highly organized crime where they're looking for the spoils of their activities, so to speak.
And how serious is cybercrime in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean region?
It's extremely serious, as we have seen recently with the example that you gave of the the government ministry that was compromised. And every so often you hear about other countries that have been affected. The reality is that we don't have any laws that make it mandatory for disclosure. So quite often we're not aware, the public at large is not aware of many of these events, because our laws don't make it mandatory to disclose that you've been compromised.
Or to report. So it could be likely an insurance company, for instance, they may be hacked and our personal information can be leaked.
Yes, definitely. That's one of the risk factors. The threat actors, in fact, will steal private data, and with that threat of disclosure, they have some leverage to try to demand a ransom before it's released.
Is this a random occurrence? Can it happen at any time?
Well, everyone is at risk. So it's important for us all to take it seriously and to reduce the risk by taking appropriate action to reduce the liability, possibility that we can be compromised.
Now, Mr. Whyte, you did touch on it somewhat. We did mention government agencies and so on. But who are exactly the targets for a cyber attack?
The targets are typically large enterprises where perpetrators are more likely to benefit financially, but by no means restricted to large companies. Medium-sized and small companies have also been compromised, so no one is really immune. We have situations where shipping companies, brokerage companies and logistics, which are SMEs, they've also been attacked. So there's no sector that's really immune from this threat.
One term that is often used in conjunction with cybercrime is the dark web, but a lot of us may not know what exactly that means. What is the dark web, Mr. Whyte?
The first is to define the different elements of the web, and maybe the two main elements are the surface web, which is the internet as we mainly know it, where we can tools such as Google search and Bing and so on are able to retrieve information from the surface web. But that's a small component of a larger web where the dark web is used both for illicit and non-illicit activities. Non-illicit was the original intent, where government agencies, law enforcement, etc., they were using it to exchange and share information across the globe. But over time, the illicit activity became probably the main threat that we face nowadays. It's where terrorist groups exchange information. It's where companies that have compromised their system and want to sell data or any kind of other illicit gain, including arms trafficking, human trafficking. It's really an emerging global situation that should be of concern to us all.
And how is it connected to cybercrime? Is it that these hackers use the dark web to communicate, to sell information, demand ransoms, and so on?
Absolutely. It can be seen as their channel of communication. And what makes it frightening is the fact that a lot of the activity can be done anonymously. So, for example, we'd have had a case months ago in TNT where there was a bomb threat to schools, and of course it was difficult to trace it to the source because it was anonymized. The IP addresses and the various other things that would link it typically to the source from which it originated, it was difficult for that to be traced because of the complexities of the dark web that was used for this thing to originate.
Well, you gave me a piece of information that I did not know about that bomb threat at the schools, that the dark web was in fact involved in that. Can anyone access the dark web?
No, you typically need additional tools and technologies that will allow you to gain access. The accessibility is possible, but it all depends on getting access to the credentials and what is necessary, which is a bit different from the internet as we normally use it.
Oh, just logging on. But coming back to cyber attacks, you don't have to be a sitting duck. A company, governments don't have to be sitting ducks. They can protect themselves against cybercrime. Tell us what measures can be put into place. And, as Calibra... Well, okay, yes, let's start there. What measures can persons put into place?
But first, as an organization, because it threatens the very viability of your ability to run the business, it should be taken seriously from the top down. Board, senior executives, for a start, they have to understand the role that they play in ensuring that their companies are protected. It's also not an IT issue. Cybersecurity involves the entire business. And part of that concern has to be security awareness training for your staff at large, so that they don't fall prey to cyber attacks. In fact, the weak link in the chain, so to speak, is employees and their inboxes. Employees falling prey to links that seem to be authentic but are simply disguised and provide an entry point for threat actors coming to your network. But a range of tools, policies, and various other methods that can be combined to reduce the risk. And it doesn't mean that you're immune, but you're reducing the risk and minimizing to the best extent possible.
Mr. Whyte, coming back to the AG's office, that cyber attack, do you think Calibra could have prevented it or helped to bolster their security?
Yes, we've been in this business for 8 years. We leverage a powerful AI solution that provides a good threat intelligence platform and has been working effectively. In fact, we currently, without naming names, we protect TNT's critical national infrastructure with the tools that we provide to the various organizations, and we've been very successful in leveraging the state-of-the-art technology to protect them.
And in closing, we have just about a minute left. Tell us about your webinar that's coming up, Defeating the Dark Web, and of course, how persons can be a part of it.
Yes, this webinar is meant to provide information on dark web intelligence, and we're partnering with a UK company that's a leader in this space, known as Searchlight Cyber. We're going to be including law enforcement, enterprises, various other entities that have an interest in being aware of the threats of the dark web and how they can leverage tools like Searchlight Cyber to protect themselves. That event is on Thursday, 9 to 11, and individuals may contact Calibra Solutions Limited if they have an interest in attending.
Mr. George Whyte, Managing Director of Calibra Solutions, let me thank you so much for joining us and, educating us about the dark web and cyber attacks, and let me wish you all the best in your upcoming webinar.
Thanks. It was a pleasure.
Same here. All the best to you. Well, to our viewers, it's now time for a quick break. We share with you this image caption, St. Madeleine. And of course, just to remind you, after the 7 a.m. news headlines, we open our phone lines. We'd love to hear from you.